So this week I've got some guys in remodeling the bathroom upstairs. So if you hear a lot of banging, that's what it will be. So you'll have to forgive me for my I've not got some kind of nice little hideaway studio somewhere. Everything happens right here in my home. But today I just want to talk about supernatural strength through joy. You know, I think the desire to be happy is universal, and there's nothing wrong with that. God created us to be happy, fulfilled individuals. You know, when God first made man, he placed him in a garden called Eden, which literally means delight. He placed him in a garden of delight. You know, and the avenues that people seek to fulfill their happiness are multiplicious. I know that multiplicious is not a word in the dictionary, but it certainly should be. The thing is, despite everyone being on the train, how many people actually arrive at contentment station? Very few. Is happiness even something we should strive for? Or maybe there's something deeper, a deeper vein that we can drill. Perhaps this idea that the world wants to foist on us that happiness is just one purchase or holiday away is false. Maybe the lie that more will make us marvelous is really part of the problem, certainly not the solution. You know, drowning under a deluge of deals that have been shimmied out, in the Friday and festive sales, leaves one wondering if there could in fact be more to life than a new spin dryer or a new air fryer or whatever it is, whatever your poison may be. You know, can I contend here with an itchy thought? Yeah, that's going to scratch something on the inside. Maybe these soothers that we reach for are tranquilizers that we take to try and keep our hearts numb to reality. And that reality is that the world is not what it claims to be. Friends, it is burning to the ground. I hate to break it to you if you didn't already know, but this entire world system is a house of cards that will one day come very royally tumbling down. There will be weeping and crying, Babylon, Babylon is fallen. And we do not want to be part of that company who was so entwined and so twisted into the fabric of the culture in which we live that we are also the ones crying and lamenting its demise. You know, the life you desire, however opulent it may be in your imagination, will never scratch the relentless discontent that scrapes at your insides. You know, if I ask the question, where are we? Here's the answer that Peter gives in his first letter. It says in 1 Peter 1:1, and I'm reading from the West New Testament, W-U-E-S-T New Testament, a great a translation and he says that Peter wrote his letter to those who have settled down alongside a pagan population sown as seed. You know, we live in Babylon. We live in the world, but we cannot be of it if we want to make a real difference. I'm so aware, actually, of my own immersion in this smash and grab culture that seeks only its own pleasures. You know, this covenant breaking, constantly on culture that craves only the next thing and is never satisfied with the present. And really, it reminded me of Lot. And here we find Lot in Genesis chapter 13. He's able to choose where he pitches his tent. And it says that he settled alongside, camping toward Sodom, facing Sodom. And, it's way too easy to become Lotish in our love for this world's accolades and trinkets if we're not careful. If we camp our tent with that in view, and we have that in the frame as our frame of reference, it's not going to be long before we're inside the gates, handing over our sons and daughters. Now, be careful. Creative brothers and sisters, culture is pervasive. It creeps up on you and then into you. into your thinking, into the way that you respond and react, and into the way that you view reality. You know, we're urged as Christian men and women, Christian creatives, we're urged as to be armed and dangerous representatives of another kingdom, and to guard our hearts and be renewed in the spirit of our mind. I love that in Ephesians 4:13. It doesn't just say, think positively. It talks about being renewed in the very spirit of our mind. The essence of our thinking has to be different. It needs to be uncoupled from the feed of liberal modernity and plugged firmly in to eternal truth. You know, the media is the sluice gate for 1 million doctrines shoveled into the atmosphere of our homes. Even with the faucet switched low, the drip drip of false doctrine eventually seeps through into everyday conversation and values. I don't need to go into details. You know very well how culture has been crumbling, and our Christian values and Christian foundations have been really decimated over these past decades. And then Peter speaks about where the people are. They're in the midst, sown a seed among an unbelieving culture. And then we find this when question. When are they living? Peter not only spoke of where we live, he also spoke of when we live. And here we find it, he tells us that we live in a time in which we are guarded by the power of God through faith for a salvation ready to be revealed in the last season, which is epochal and strategic in its significance. The last season is upon us. So, being so placed, we need to be vigilant. Like a soldier on guard watching the walls, we must be absolutely clear on this one thing. The enemy prowls and plots relentlessly how he might breach our boundaries and cause our downfall. You know, in times of war, there's no room to double down on comforts. Epochal moments are marked by epochal people. Pursuit of pleasure may be the culture, but the pursuit of God and his righteousness is the order of the day. The devil's first and most successful play is not to resist God's people, but first to invite them. Come inside, he says. You've pitched your tent near the gate. Why not take a few more compromised steps and put a little less distance between yourself and the world in which you live? And then the final question I want to ask is how? How should we respond to this? Again, reading from Peter. Knowing the season that we are in girds our mind and informs our actions. And thus equipped, Peter says, in this last season, you are to be constantly rejoicing with a joy that expresses itself in triumphant exuberance. How magnificent is that? How are we to overcome and stay true to the Lord? Constant rejoicing, joy that overflows in triumphant exuberance. We are a triumphant people, not a beat down people. This may be a day of the devil running rampant, but it's also a day of the church's greatest triumphs. The dark backdrop that our Father is allowing to be staged will make the glaring light of the gospel all the more bright and all the more attractive when it shines. My dear friends, worship is your weapon, and joy is the strength that you need to harness. Well, thanks for listening. Hopefully, it's been an encouragement to you today. If you want to connect any further, you can do so through my website at davidleemartin.com. Have a great day.